Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Dr. Christiaan Willems. Dr. Chris, we're going to be knowing him as. And he comes from arts media, as you can see if you're watching the video. And we're going to be talking about comfortable, confident, and credible on camera. A lot of people that start off business don't actually realize that there's a lot more to it than just kind of getting out there and doing your business and having everybody understand what it is. It's there's a lot that you have to do in the background in order to get out into the foreground. So he says, what's Mime got to do with it? He has been a coach and a consultant in the corporate sector for more than 20 years, specializing in nonverbal and on-camera communication. But his professional background, after leaving consulting engineering behind, spans over 40 years in the performing arts, music, and television. And for 25 of those years, he was a professional mime artist, creating and performing and touring soul mime shows. Well, this is rather fascinating, and I want to know how you actually went from that to doing what you're doing now, although I really can see the thread of it. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chris.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Yes, a bit of a leap. I started off in consulting engineering, and because my parents, as all good parents do, want their children to have viable careers.
Mm-hmm.
And,
They
and
go
but
and get
while
the real job, right?
get a real job, yes, yes. While I was doing that, I was also doing music and playing drums and writing songs and singing in bands and things. And the music gradually took over. Ironically, my parents said, "Oh, you're going to be a draftsman because draftsmen are never out of work." Ironically, the first job I had as a draftsman, I was retrenched from there because there was a downturn. So there's a bit of irony there. But now I was doing music in parallel with my career, my proper career as an engineering draftsman, and that gradually took over. That got me accidentally involved in theatre, and at the time I didn't even know theatre existed. And but I kind of got involved in theatre a lot, and mainly through music, and then decided to go to London for a time,
Mm-hmm.
unspecified time. So and a friend who I knew from theatre in Brisbane in Australia was studying mime in London. And she said, "Oh, Chris, you should try mime. You've got the body for it." I had a slightly different body then, and so
You
I
have
thought,
mime
"Oh
in
yeah,
any shape and size. Come on.
well, indeed." But I built like a body of a greyhound. I used to joke, it's body of a greyhound, which no longer is. It's now more the body of a Labrador. Um, but so I thought, oh yes, I'll try that, and I did, and I had an aptitude for it, and I really enjoyed it, and so I kept doing that and studying that. And in parallel with that, I was studying design for television, and ended up getting a job with the BBC in the UK, which was lovely. It was like a temporary contract job, and so I was doing these parallel things, studying these parallel things and doing them. And then when I came back to Australia a couple of years later, I always say I left Australia as a drummer and a draftsman, and I came back as a mime artist and a television designer. Bit of a leap, bit of a leap.
You're slightly different, yeah.
Well, there's a certain inescapable logic to it, which is in my mind, in other
Yes,
people's minds.
yes, it's just the next jump, obviously.
Well, that's right. Yes, yes, indeed. So yeah, I have been doing those things ever since, and that was a few decades ago. So yeah, and for me, the notion of doing mime or the mime skills, applying those to the corporate sector is, as I say, an inescapable logic. I spent several years creating solo mime shows and touring them. One of which I adapted for television, and it was a solo version of Romeo and Juliet done in the style of a Bugs Bunny cartoon. It was a comedy version, style of Bugs Bunny. As a child, I was influenced by Bugs Bunny Roadrunner cartoons, and that was embedded in my brain. And because the great thing about mime is that its greatest resource, the greatest resource you have, and it costs you nothing, is the audience's imagination. So
Yes.
provided you're doing the work clearly, and then the audience are actually working really hard. They don't realize they're working really hard, but as long as you're clear about what you're doing and you can tell those stories, and the audience fills in all of the detail that is not there visually. I sometimes describe Mime as visual radio. Because like radio, you have the sound but no pictures. In Mime, you have the movement and the performance, but no pictures and no sound. So the audience fills the rest of that in. And so I was doing those, and one of them, because it was based on Bugs Bunny cartoons, I thought, well, and my background in television, I thought, oh, I might try and turn that back into essentially a 1-hour cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're playing all of the roles, including Romeo, Juliet, a cast of thousands, and a small dog, that's a bit of a challenge.
Romeo and Juliet, not the dog, right?
Oh yeah, no, the dog was easy. But it's the process of because I'd studied and worked in television, I was familiar with some of the technical stuff that that would solve the problem, essentially, of having several of me on screen at the same time, and interacting with each other, the characters interacting with each other, but they were all me because it was a solo show.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a few years to get the money to make it, because when you walk into a television executive's office and you say, I want to do Romeo and Juliet, for a start, they're showing you the door, because no television
Not that
executive.
again.
Not that again. Romeo and Juliet, I want to do it like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. They can vaguely relate to Bugs Bunny cartoons. I want to do it without words, and I want to do it as a comedy, and I want to do it all on my own, playing all the parts. And I want $500,000 of your money to do it.
Sold.
They kind of show you the door very quickly. And so it took a while to convince enough people that it would work in the way that I envisaged that it would work. And then, yes, the money eventually came. And so it took 4 years to get the money, 1 year to make it. And it won a few awards around the world, and was nominated for an international Emmy, which I was immensely proud of. So I proved that. I was talking to someone earlier today about instinct and intuition, and as artists, we use our intuition all the time. So, I mean, I was quoting an interview. I was once interviewed by one of the interviews I'd done for a newspaper, and the journalist said, "Oh, how did you know it was going to work?" I said, "Well, I'm an artist. For me." Why ask the question?
Exactly.
Of course, like,
can't you see the vision? Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know, well, how it's going to work, you know it's going to work. So, so it was a redundant question, really, as far as I was. But then it's very easy to assume knowledge on behalf of other people. I can see the logic in how it was going to work. I can see the logic in applying those skills to the corporate sector. What I do now,
right.
Other people don't necessarily see that immediately. But when you explain to them how and why it works, then they go, oh, okay, yeah. But it's very easy to assume knowledge on behalf of other people. And I'm sure we all do that. We all assume that everybody knows what we know. But yeah, the combination, this is not bragging by any means, but the combination of skills and expertise and experience I've had is pretty unique. There's no such thing as it's unique because it's me and that particular combination. Other people have different combinations of skills. Yes. So getting into the, excuse me, the how that applies to the business. I mean, we're talking about building a business, and what I've done over the last 20 years is to build a business on that premise. There's my and on the way I got a master's degree and a doctorate. I say on the way casually, but there's a fair bit of work involved. But a third of my doctoral thesis is in fact about that very thing, about applying those very particular performance skills to the corporate sector. And so I kind of, my life in many ways has gone in reverse. I don't get the qualification, then do the work. I actually do the work first, then get the qualification. because my argument is that the experience informs the research and the qualification, because you know that it works because you've done it. And
Right.
so, and that adds a richness to any research. And that's
Yeah.
why doing a doctorate, when you're 50 or whatever it was, uh, I would argue is potentially of more value than doing one when you're 20,
Hmm.
because you've got all that experience to feed
Yeah.
into it and
People
to
undermine experience, don't they? As far
oh,
as yes, you can have every degree possible coming out of your yin yang, but that's theory. What's the experience of the
mm,
practice? And yes, you're okay, you can apply it this way, but what if the circumstances are that, or what if the
mm,
arena is that? That means the
absolutely.
experience is going to change to it. So really, it's about your adaptability, your resilience, your ability to see things not as, oh, it's not working out the way I wanted to. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I can try it this way. So,
Indeed, you're absolutely right. And experience tends to be devalued these days, and it's as I said somewhere in a paper I wrote about a practice-led doctorate, which mine was. It was a practice-led one. That we've all said and heard and said, oh, that's fine in theory, but dot 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 in our life. I'm
yeah,
sure we've all
yeah,
done that more than once,
yeah, yeah,
because we know it's
yeah,
like the theory of technology. That as we all know, the, the the technology should do this, but it often doesn't. And I've
we
decided
know.
we absolutely know. There are two words that have taken on a whole new meaning with IT. One is you just, because technical people say, oh, you just do this.
Yeah,
They preface
yeah,
everything. You just, like, you idiot. You just do this.
yes,
They see the screen in different ways to how we see the screen. The other
yes.
word is should. It
Mm,
should work, but no,
hmm.
it doesn't.
I hate
So
that word should. All these
absolutely.
shoulds.
So those words have become very weighted
Yeah.
in the IT space. But you're right. It's all about content and context. And if you
Mm,
can't adapt, then you fail, because it's all about, as you rightly point out, it's all about adaptation. Do you have the flexibility and the
yeah.
adaptability to change, to amend, to tweak, to vary the theory to suit the reality of this
Yes.
particular context? So yes,
You can't be
it's all
rigid. You can't be
no, you
rigid.
can't. No,
Because that,
you have to.
do it synopsis with a tree, strong roots, good trunk. That's the experience of life. That's the rooting
Mm,
of life. But those branches can weather quite a lot of storms because everything else
absolutely.
is strong. And if you're rigid, then your branches are going to break. And very often the reason why it's not working the way you thought it would work is that just get out of your own way, get out of your ego, just, take a moment, take a deep breath and allow, and
Mm,
okay, I'm meant to do it this way. Or,
indeed.
that wouldn't work if I did it that way. This is actually more impactful. But if you're so dictatorial on how it should be,
Mm,
instead of what it's meant to be, right,
yes,
you're going to miss the actual reason why you're doing it in the first place.
absolutely right. And I couldn't agree more. It's and increasingly with technology, etc., and modern society, if we don't adapt, we die.
Yes,
Essentially,
exactly.
professionally, certainly. So yes, it's all about adaptability and flexibility, and being able to see things in different ways. I mean, that's the great thing about having a creative background. Artists
Mm,
generally, not just me, but artists generally tend to
yes.
see the world in different ways, sometimes very different ways, and sometimes you need that. I think I referred to the arts as the cultural R&D
Mm,
of our society,
I like
and
that.
because,
I
yeah,
like
well,
that.
if
Yeah.
I like your analogy of the tree, I'm going to steal that one.
Oh, please do. But I like this one, the artistry R&D, because quite honestly, my brother is an author. I've
Right.
just interviewed beautiful Joel Coleman from the Planters and all his wonderful, life experience. And my second time having him on, and he's just done a book for children, actually on why not to smoke, drink, or take drugs, and how to introduce it to them in a way that
Right.
I choose happiness over misery. Right.
Mm,
And it's
right.
already having an impact, which is really wonderful to see. He never ever set up thinking he would do that. It's a
No.
He's allowed his journey to evolve and take him down. The opportunities have been presented, and just instead of saying, well, I'm a singer, I'm this, I'm that, he's saying, oh, that's interesting. How can
Mm,
I be a part of it? And I think the big thing is that rigidity, we see a lot of people, especially in business. I want it to be this. I want my clientele to be that. I want to present it in that way. And, that's your vision of it, but maybe it's not the vision that's meant to be. And the big
Indeed.
question is, and this is something I'd like to ask everybody is, why are you doing it?
Mm.
Because if you haven't
Because
asked yourself why,
indeed, and artists do it because it's a vocation. I mean,
yeah,
there's certainly no money. It's a vocation. It's not a job. It's a vocation. It's a you have to do it. It's like oxygen. If you don't have it, if you can't do something creative every day or week or whatever,
yes,
you die. You creatively
yes,
die,
you do.
and your thinking gets narrower and narrower. In
Hmm.
fact, when I was doing my doctorate, it occurred to me that doing research is not that different to creating art,
Mm,
because you start at a point and you have an end point. You think, oh
mm,
yes, I'm going to do that, and it's going to be X, Y, Z. But on the journey, you use the word journey. The journey takes you to places you don't expect, both
yeah,
in the arts and in
yeah.
research. Excuse me. And so and if you resist that, you fail.
Mm,
But you have no choice, but you have to go with it, because it has its own momentum and
yeah.
it takes on its own life. So you have to follow that journey and where that path takes
I
you.
would say resistance is futile.
Absolutely,
When you're in
absolutely.
a flow, go with the flow. Stop trying to swim
Yeah,
upstream. Go with the flow. It would take you
yeah.
where you need to go.
Indeed, and trusting that process
Mm,
is a really, really important part of both research and art, because it's just it's the instinctive. It's kind of, I described it once as, it's a bit like, here's your path, and there are planets either side. There are things, the gravitational pull. You mightn't go all the way across to that thing there, but it takes you. Oh, hang on, let's go here a bit. Oh, there
mm.
you come back, and that's changed your view. It's coloured your view of where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Or why
So,
are you going there? I mean, it changes
what
your
indeed?
perspective along the way.
Yes.
I thought I was
Yeah.
going to go and do this. And then, but this presented itself, and it's something I
Mm,
incorporated or I decided to go down that way. And I really am
mm,
happy that I'm going down that way because now that's opened up to this and to that. You know,
absolutely.
be
Un,
surprised by
yes,
yourself.
unanticipated opportunities, and
Mm,
if you close yourself off to them, then
yeah,
you are closing off to a whole lifetime of new things and exciting
yeah.
possibilities. Sometimes they don't always work, but often they do. And I mean, it's like the whole nature of serendipity, and
Mm.
there's a whole story around serendipity, that you can't rely on serendipity, but you have to trust it when it turns up,
Yes.
and be amazed by it. Be amazed at
Yes.
how things fall together. You go, how the hell did that
Ah,
happen?
I
I,
know. Isn't it
there's
wonderful? I
no
love
reason
it.
why those things should have happened. They have,
Yeah.
and that's why life is much more interesting than fiction. I mean,
Mm.
the particular stories
I
I'm
don't know
I'm
which
thinking.
comes first, quite honestly. I was thinking about this actually the other day, is that we look at a lot of stuff that's coming under the thing of fiction. And then we actually see reality and go, hang on,
Oh, yeah.
is did the fiction, was that the template for the reality? Was the reality, the fiction, the reinterpretation of
Mm.
the, and it's like, I don't know, chicken and egg, very often.
Absolutely. And increasingly, as we get older, and I'm doing that very quickly, as we get older, well, I certainly find that fact is far more interesting than fiction. I mean, there's a particular story I'm thinking of. If someone wrote that as a film script, no one would believe it, but
Exactly.
it actually happened, and you go, my God, how did those things all come together? So, and I'm not particularly religious, but I'm certainly, I believe in spirituality,
Yes.
and intuition
Yes.
and all those things, and we are all connected in some way.
Yeah.
So,
Source, gas, God, universe, energy, source, whatever you wish to call it. It's tapping in. It's tapping
absolutely.
in and being able to download. And as I say, if we can get
Mm,
out of our own ego and our own dictation and go, this is kind of how I want to feel. When people say, draw something of how you want to be, what you want out of life. And people think that, an affirmation is like an Amazon delivery. And it's not about what you want, right? It's how you want to feel. And if you can put
indeed.
out to the universe
Mm,
of how you want to feel, I'd like to feel this, I'd like to feel that, then get out of the way and pay attention, because the universe is going to give you almost like puzzle pieces. And
Yeah, yeah,
here's a
yeah.
piece, here's a piece. Now put them together, and the picture will form.
Yes,
Right?
indeed. Yeah,
Patience
yeah.
has to be in there too, though.
Well, yeah, and you have to trust that whole
Yeah,
process,
yeah.
and it's and sometimes that can be a bit tricky when things aren't going the way you want them to. I mean, with Son of Romeo, the television, the stage/television adaptation I did, I approached here in Australia, this is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, it's the national broadcaster. I approached them because they were the obvious ones to
Mm-hmm.
approach. Commercial commercial TV wouldn't have a bar, and it took the ABC 2.5 years to say no,
Mm.
um, and then it took SBS, which is another national broadcaster, but a small one. It took them 2.5 weeks to say yes.
Interesting.
In the intervening time, which is immensely distressing because I thought, I have to do this, and I don't have the means to do it. So I have,
Mm-hmm.
but in the intervening time, the technology had improved so
Yes.
much that by the time I did get to do it, it was much, much better than it would have been had I done it right at the very start. So
That's where the patience comes in, right?
absolutely,
I
yes,
mean, 6 years ago, I was given a vision of where to take my network, my podcast network, and not just being,
right,
a podcast, but how to branch it off. And the vision was very, very clear. And I'm a person that I'll create a graphic to, for me to understand the vision. And then I kind of went about trying to make it happen. And then there would be this carrot and that carrot, and nope, it ended up being rhubarb, and, just not the right time or the right people or the right place. And it's just like, okay, I'm not going to give up.
mm,
I know the vision is right, but how it's
mm,
going to come about, I don't know. And in the end, it's come about in a way far better and far clearer, because the one step is now leading to two or three other steps that actually fit into
yes,
that graphic. And the thing is,
yes,
again, I found, I mean, this is, probably to do with the gray hair. It's somehow, it just sets us off in a different way of thinking. I've become more the tortoise than the hare.
right,
Right? The
yes,
hare used to
indeed,
chase after things and want to get to the
yep,
finish line and do it. Now I'm the tortoise. And in doing so, I'm gathering. I'm gathering people. I'm gathering information. I'm gathering skills and tools. And
mm,
instead of it being a kind of a pie in the sky, it's now something that's growing out like a good old fungi and spreading its wings, right? So, but patience, back to the word patience again. If you want
mm.
quick results, do something different.
Indeed, and it's very what you've just been saying is extremely profound, and yes, there is something about being grey haired and
Wisdom
the
comes
wisdom that
later
comes
life,
with
yeah.
that. We assume the wisdom the stupidity carries with us as well.
Of
Um,
course.
but again,
That's
it
that's
comes back
part
to
of the art. Otherwise, we wouldn't do what we're doing.
trusting the processes,
Yeah,
and it takes a certain number indeterminate number of knockbacks and
yeah,
and
yes,
frustrations and disappointments before we realize that we have to trust the process.
right.
And yes, I'm sure we're all running hairs and trying to get things done instantly,
Yeah.
but you're right. The best way is
Mm.
to be patient. The word you use the word patience, and frustrating as that can be,
Yeah, I know.
and
I know.
impatient one can be about being impatient.
Oh, yes.
It's absolutely the process to follow, and again trust and allow to happen. The caveat on that is that you've got to do the work to get to
Mm,
that point. You've got to
yes.
have
You're not
work up the
sitting back
night.
waiting. You're
No, I'm just
preparing.
going to sit back and drink
Yeah.
pina coladas on a beach and wait for the world to
It
come to
sounds
me. That's
good.
not going to happen. We're having done the work.
Yeah.
Then it's a bit like creating a song or
Yeah.
an artistic work. You create it, and then once it's made, you have no
No.
control over it. You throw it out to the universe
Yeah.
and go, well, if people like it, they like it. If see how it goes, because you don't really know. In fact, I with my clients, my business clients, I uh, I make them do to manifest the outcomes of the course that are written. There are three outcomes. There's a 20-minute presentation, live presentation. There's a 20 to 30 second video, and there's a webinar that they have to host and do and present those three things. It's the implementation that where the value lies, because as any performer will tell you, you can rehearse and rehearse and rehearse until the cows come home. You do 1,600 dress rehearsals,
Mm-hmm.
final dress rehearsals, until you do that in front of an audience,
Yeah.
you don't know whether it works or how well it works or what you need to tweak, what
Ah.
bits you have to take out, bits you have to
Or
add in.
what kind
You
of
just don't know.
audience you've got. My mother was an actress. She said every night was a different performance based on how the audience interacted or what energy they
Absolutely.
put out, or did they have to bring it out
Absolutely.
of them, or was the energy there that they could tap into? And you
Mm.
you will hear performers who are singers or this that they can do. How can you've sung that song thousands of times? How can you still?
Yeah.
And it is you're singing to different people every time, different
Yes.
energies every time.
Yes.
It's being
Yes.
tapped in.
Indeed, that's absolutely right. Every audience is different, so every performance
Yes.
by nature has to be different.
Yeah.
Um, and it's, I mean, doing solo mime shows, they have a certain rhythm
Mm.
and pace to them, and that's why, like, you don't drink coffee before you do a performance. It goes quite fast. But I would find that if I tried to resist the rhythm of
Mm-hmm.
a performance, which is a combination of the audience and the
Mm-hmm.
content of the book
Yes.
itself, if you try to resist that, it just doesn't work. It just
Yeah.
feels wrong all the time. So
Yeah.
you have to go with that rhythm, and so that because the show, the performance, the piece of music takes on a life of its own,
Yeah, I agree
and
with you.
and that's what it's a living, breathing thing, and that is the combination of the piece and the audience as well. So it's a fascinating interaction, and it's always a three-way process: the performer, the content,
Mhm.
and the performance, and the audience, and yeah,
And it doesn't
it's
matter
a
if you are a performer or if you're a business person, you're still performing. And again, are you in flow? Have you invited people into your rhythm?
mm,
Are they in the
mm,
same vibe, the same frequency? Because if they are, they can ride that wave that you're presenting. But if
mm.
your wave isn't in sync with them, their surfboard is going to fall off somewhere. It's
That's right.
it's
Yes,
creating
indeed.
a rhythm that they want to dance to, so to speak.
Mm. And again, as a performer or a business presenter,
Yeah.
and we're talking about business
Hmm.
and that kind of, yes, there's an element of performance in that. What you have to be in control of that,
Mm.
and we get anxious, we get nervous, and I love quoting Dame Judi Dench when
I
people
love
say, "Oh, I
her.
get nervous," and I love quoting Dame Judi Dench, who describes nerves as the batteries of performance,
Yes, my mom
and
used to say
it,
the same. Yeah, it's
yeah,
got you in
it's
tuned.
absolutely right. It
Yeah,
energizes the presentation, the performance,
yeah.
whatever. I mean, the word performance is a great analogy, but it's also a bit dangerous in the
Mm.
business sense, because the authenticity that comes
Yes.
with you yourself as a presenter, as a business
Mhm.
presenter, is different from that of playing an actor, playing a
Yeah.
character, an actor playing a character. And I have this continuum. It's called the stylized version of you, which I've trademarked actually 20 years ago. Hit on this thing. Of course, that's what it is. I've never subscribed to the fake it till you make it philosophy. I mean, I know
Yeah.
some people do, it works for them, but I don't. But the stylized version of you is there are degrees of stylization. We do this stuff intuitively. Again, the
Hmm.
intuition. Now, if you're having a chat with a business colleague over a coffee in a coffee shop or whatever, there's an element of the you-ness, meaning the you that wakes up in the morning that only
Yes.
you or your family or the cat sees.
You as
There's
yourself.
yeah, you talk about what you did on the weekend. Oh, by the way, let's talk about some work stuff. And so there's a casualness about that, or an
Mm.
informality or
Mm.
semi-formality. Whereas if you are talking about the same information and you're doing a presentation to the Minister of Education or whatever, or the Prime, you put a bit more time into it. You formalize it. You think about what you're wearing, all that
Or
kind of stuff,
structuralize
and
it. Yeah.
you
Hmm.
structuralize.
Mm.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. You prepare it better.
Mm.
So that's at the more towards the other end of the continuum. You still got to be you, and
Yes.
got to be authentic you. But there's and we do, as I say, we do this stuff intuitively.
Mm.
It's like an audio fader. You slide it up along the continuum depending on the content and the context of where you are. Again, we're
But
talking
all
about
the
content.
time maintaining a you. Because
Absolutely.
there are people that are gifted speakers and they can sell an Eskimo a fridge, right?
Mm,
And they're really great at the presentation, but there's a
mm,
hollowness about them. You want
yes.
that same person that's having that cup of coffee with a friend or just talking about something passionate about it, that same
Mm,
passion, that same drive,
yes.
that same why, but
Mm,
obviously delivered in a more structured manner, but
mm.
at the same
Indeed.
time with the same loving energy of why you're doing it,
Yes.
because that's what
Yes.
they're going to feel. They want to feel what you're saying.
Absolutely. There's got to be a human connection.
Yeah.
And again, with technology, we're increasingly in danger of losing that humanity. And my approach to coaching people in presenting is that that's what people want to see. They want that human to human contact, irrespective of
Of the
the
delivery.
context or
Yeah.
the medium through
Yeah.
which, I mean, we're talking now. And yes, we have a human connection, but it's limited to two dimensions in a sense,
Yes.
because
Yes.
we're both on screen. So how do you build the humanity or retain the humanity in this kind of interaction? It's by how you approach the content, how you relate to the other person, and how you relate to the screen, to the
Mm.
camera. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really tricky thing, because the camera is an entirely foreign environment talking to a piece of glass, i.e.
Yeah.
the camera lens. It's totally unnatural. So people say, "Oh, I want to feel natural." Well, it's never going to feel natural unless you've been a newsreader for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that can feel vaguely natural. But you're talking to a piece of glass. What you're not getting is any that
Feedback.
audience feedback.
Yeah.
Yes, you're not getting any, non-verbal, verbal. What you're
Mm.
just not getting it. It's a one-way process. So I love quoting Phil Collins during my doctoral
Love
research.
his music too.
Oh,
Yes.
it has a musical aspect to it. My doctor has a 1/3 music. The second third is something else, and the third is the corporate, the mime and the corporate stuff.
Mm.
But I remember watching an interview with him when he talked about putting out the album Face Value, about how it was a very organic process, and he doesn't like to just work something and work it and work it and work it until it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of white bread. He said, "Does it reach you? Does it touch you? That's the thing." And that's
Yes.
precisely right.
Right.
Whether it's a business
Yeah.
communication, a presentation, does it reach you? Does it touch you? That's the thing. So we have to make it.
Mm.
And things like the course. I just finished doing a unit on or a component of a unit on using teleprompters. And newsreaders can be pretty good at using teleprompters and making it sound conversational,
Yeah.
whereas most people, including myself, we when we first start using teleprompter, hello, my name is Chris Willems and I'm using a teleprompter, and it just goes flat and boring.
Yes.
So what you have to, I call it rehearsed spontaneity. You have to build in what is apparently spontaneous conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and bring an active awareness to that whole challenging environment, and make sure that what's my voice doing? I mean, you've got a great voice, Sarah. You've got a radio kind of voice. You're very conscious of, or it's familiar enough to you now that it's become unconscious. But your cadences and rhythms are very appealing,
Thank you.
very easy on the ear, lovely to listen to. Most people, when they're reading an auto cue, they don't do that. So
Flatline.
flatline, absolutely. And I call it active awareness. I mean, being aware of something is one thing. Being actively aware means you're aware of it and you do something about it. So
Mm.
the active awareness that you've obviously brought to your context in interviewing people and having these conversations is fantastic, because you're so familiar with it now that you do it as a matter of course, I assume,
Mm-hmm.
because you've been doing it for a long time and you're very good at it. So for the rest of the human race, we're not so good at it naturally. And so we need to be conscious of it. So the active awareness one brings to that. And that active awareness applies to the voice, it applies to the body language, it
Yes.
applies to how you relate to, whether on stage or on screen, how you relate to the device or the people sitting in seats watching you and listening to you. Excuse me. So again, it's the awareness of performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talk in theatre. They talk a lot about naturalism and
Mm.
performance, and I've decided in 40 years of working in the performing arts, there's no such thing as naturalism, because you can be sure that if someone is on stage making it look really easy, they're working really, really
Yep.
hard to make it look really easy, and that's true of sport.
Yes. They've
You can
stepped
watch.
it up.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
watch Roger Federer play tennis,
Mm-hmm.
or Kathy Freeman run the 400 meters, and it looks effortless.
Yeah.
The reason it looks effortless is because they're working so bloody hard to make it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
they have worked so hard, and they continue to work really hard. So never, people should never assume that it should be easy.
No.
It's
No.
always hard.
And
It's
we
always
were
it
actually
always.
talking about this at my show beforehand with Joe Coleman. Is he's out there. He said 20% is the performance, the part you love. You're singing with the audience is feeling it, you're feeling what the audience is feeling. The 80% is the hauling of the equipment, up 3 flights of stairs and then back down again. And they used to have these particular synthesizers that weighed like 300 ton and they were 5 foot tall, and have to hold those up and down. And it's like nobody sees that. They just see the performance
No,
and think
indeed.
they've just woken up, gone to the performance, and have this wonderful life. And it's like, no, I mean, the reason that he could get up there and make it look so effortless is because of all, and this is something interesting with him. He was a veteran, so he actually fixed airplanes, in the Vietnam War, and that
Mm,
same discipline and structure he brought into the business of music. The music was the natural thing for him. How to
mm,
conduct that natural, and then goes back to that why. Why are you doing the business you're doing?
yeah,
Whom
yeah,
do you want to
yeah.
serve? Why this particular arena? That's your why, that's your passion, that's your conviction. This is why you want
Mm,
to do it. How you're going to do it, incorporating the
yeah.
passion, incorporating the longevity and the resilience and the adaptability into all the things that can go wrong. How prepared are you in your structure in order to
Indeed.
deliver that?
Again, you're absolutely right. Again, it's the active awareness. How do you make these unconscious processes conscious
Mm,
enough to make them work?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, the unconscious doesn't always kind of do it right when there's an audience involved, and a lot of it's to do with confidence. In fact, after being a mime artist for 25 years, I thought I'll go back to music. I'll get some singing lessons because I hadn't used my voice for 25 years. Went to get some singing lessons, and I found this wonderful singing teacher. And the first day, the first lesson I walked in, and I rather arrogantly said, "Oh, I think singing is probably 80% confidence, 20% technique." And she went, "No, no, 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 no." I thought, "Oh God, I've offended her now." She said it's more 5% technique and 95% confidence. And so that applies, that the numbers might vary, but that principle applies to presenting, to performance, to anything that involves relating to other people in a professional sense. So I was really blown away by that, and I thought,
yeah.
oh, okay. It was a real eye opener. So what I work on a lot with my clients, and again we do it intuitively, but we make the
There's
intuitive
a
conscious.
structure to the intuition.
There
Yeah,
is, there is,
yeah.
and one of the things I love about the work that I do, and I just love it. I almost feel guilty taking money for it, almost. Um, one
Not
of
quite.
the, I love getting finding out what makes people tick,
Yeah, I
and
know.
and
Yes.
it's fascinating because that manifests in how they physically come across. I mean,
Yeah.
how our bodies move and
Mm,
carry themselves is an absolute literal translation and reflection of how we're feeling at the time. So if you're feeling lousy, you look lousy. If you're feeling bright
yes.
and confident, you look bright and confident because your body carries that and manifests that. So, but you can work it the other way as well. If you
Mm,
can tweak the body language, that can actually feed into
mm,
building the confidence. It's a remarkable thing, and I've learned this for over 20 years of doing it. It's remarkable how if you tweak the body language and how one carries oneself, that can really lift one's confidence. And it's a self-cycling thing. The more confident you look, the more confident you feel,
yeah.
therefore the more confident you look. And it's fantastic, whether that's on screen or on stage. I mean, it
Yeah.
manifests more
Or in real
on
life
stage
or
in the
anywhere,
sense
really. Yeah.
that we see the full body, but on screen, we're talking now, and we're essentially in what's called an MCU, medium close up. So I'm moving my hands around. When I'm doing mime, I have to be very conscious of not just throwing my hands around randomly. Um, but when we're on screen, even though we can't see the hands, they're out of frame, it's really important that you keep moving. If you're someone who gestures, it's really
Yes.
important that you keep gesturing and keep moving because it brightens it activates the body,
Yeah.
it activates the voice as
Yes.
well, which is a remarkable thing.
Yeah, I
And
have a
so,
lot of people that are first timers, I call
mm,
virgin podcasters, and we've had this conversation and they're all relaxed, and then it's like I'm into my intro, and suddenly they're like
yeah,
this,
yeah,
and it's my
indeed.
job to make them feel at ease. right, to
Mm,
bring them out.
mm,
And if I'm doing my job right, within a few minutes, they've relaxed, they're into the conversation, and now you're seeing them for who they are. So, if you're listening to podcasts, folks, sometimes you can feel this person
mm.
maybe is not quite in it. Give them a bit of time. They'll loosen up, right? At first they're just like, oh, that's action, and then they realize, oh no, it's a conversation,
Yeah.
And yes, I talk with my hands. The only stupid thing is on Zoom, the hand keeps coming up on
Well,
the thing.
what's where you bring the consciousness in? Yeah, yes, I need to keep gesturing, but if I gesture in front of my face, it's going to be distracting. So I have to tell you the story. I was working with a bunch of 50-year-old blokes, with a capital B blokes, up in Mount Isa. And there was one woman in there, and these are all blokes, sitting there with their high
Yeah,
vis, going, "What's this crap about?"
yeah.
Talking about communication, and there's one woman in amongst all these blokes who was very accomplished at what she did. I can't remember exactly what she did, but she was there because she was really good at her job, and she was, especially compared to all the big fluffy blokes, she was fairly slightly built, and she was small, and she was sitting, literally sitting on her hands, and which made her smaller because it drew the shoulders in and made her look really
Mm.
small. And after a while, I said, why do you sit like that? And she said, oh, because I originally trained as a teacher, and I was told never use your hands to gesture because it distracts from the message. So she'd literally sat on her hands for 27 years,
Ah,
not gesturing. And I went, never ever do that again.
no.
Because and all of a sudden she allowed herself to move, and the voice became brighter, the
All
body
right.
just lifted.
The,
And it
the
was just an
the
extraordinary
extension
thing
of
that,
her voice, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
one piece of bad advice
Yes.
27 years
Wow.
previously
Mm.
had affected her presence, her
Mm.
physical presence. And it was such a liberating thing. And
Yeah.
that's why sometimes, very often, the reason we do things or don't do things is because of a particular bit of advice from someone who should know, or maybe has been ill-informed themselves. But that piece of advice, grew into this massive problem, in a sense,
But
and
people always been,
diminished it.
yeah, like it's, yes, I mean, God, I've been doing this 11 and three-quarter years now, over 10 years with my own network, and I've
Mm,
interviewed a numerous amount of people, and it's all, it's, I mean, when I'm interviewed and I'm asked questions, I actually don't always remember what I've said. you know, and it's, can you repeat that? No, I can see it. But there's enough structure behind me to know that what I am saying isn't too out of far field, right? Because there's always a baseline of what I'm going to say is always from that baseline. But I think one of the problems is that we allow people, no, you can't do it that way. I mean, how many times have people told me I've got to podcast this way, I've got to do it this way, I've got to do it that
mm,
way. And, why don't you do it like Oprah? Why don't you do it like this person? That's because they're taken. I'm doing it like
absolutely.
Sarah. All right.
That's
And you
absolutely
can
right.
listen or not listen. I won't be
Yep.
offended. But all I know
Mm,
how to be is Sarah. Right. And
it-
that's the thing, is don't be afraid to be yourself, because quite honestly, before anybody buys from you or wants to
mm,
listen to you, they want to know, they see you. They want to know you. Right. They got to buy
absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Does it reach them? Does it touch them? Do you
Yes.
reach? Do
Yes.
you touch them?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. And it's so the authentic version of you, even if it's a stylized version of you, the authentic version of you
Hmm.
is what we respond to or not.
Yes.
And you can't assume that everyone's going to. We can't assume
No,
everyone's going to like it.
no.
Um,
It's not one
but
size fits all.
no, no, absolutely right. And so the formulaic kind of approach to things, and here's your script, here's what you say. Sorry, it doesn't work for me. I need to have a conversation. I need to have a personal slash professional. I need to have a relationship with this person before I know A, if I can work with them, and B, if they can work with me,
Yes.
and if we
Yes.
can work together. Because and the level of trust that's involved
Mm.
in the kind of work that you and I do, the level
Hmm.
of trust that's involved that one has to ensure is there right from the very start. That's a very, very delicate thing. It's a delicate flower that
Got
needs
to
to be
take
nurtured.
responsibility for it, because you're asking people to be
Absolutely.
vulnerable.
Absolutely.
The
And
greatest gift to them
yes,
is to feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, which is the greatest respect to us, because they trust us with that. But at the same time, we've got to also know their boundaries of how far we can push and how much we can bring out and that they feel comfortable in that vulnerability.
Absolutely. And it's only that vulnerability and allowing that to be visible that allows us to do our work. Because
Yes.
until, because there's barriers and screens and reinforced iron
Mm-hmm.
mesh in between all of us. But until that comes down, we don't know. We can't really do our work properly. Yes, you can do surface kind of work, but until you know what
Yeah.
makes someone tick and why their physicality is manifesting in the way that it is, or their voice, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or the way they come across, until you work out why, then you can't really
Yes.
deal with the
The
how
how.
to
Yeah.
mend, tweak, fix,
Yeah.
whatever. And I mean, there are some people who are, just by force of personality, are really engaging presenters.
Yes.
Maybe not technically good, but they have
Yeah.
a personality that you have to listen to. That one
Presence.
is
Yeah.
compelled to listen to them. Not all of us are like that, and so we have to find ways of manifesting who we are with honesty and openness
Mm-hmm.
and control at the same time, and vulnerability, because we have to be vulnerable as well as the coaches. So it's a very, very personal
Yeah.
interaction and relationship that we have, even via a screen,
Yeah.
even via a screen. So again, that's why I love the work that I do,
Yeah.
because it's finding out about what an intriguing thing, what an intriguing background you have. How did you arrive at this point? Those kind of stories are fascinating. They're just fascinating things. And
And yeah, I think that's what kind of is a driving force, isn't it? Is it, my network is called self-discovery wisdom. We've all got
yes.
wisdom inside of it. How do we discover that? How do we,
Mm,
allow it? And I think, it's having that sense of wonderment that keeps us going, that
mm,
keeps us always intrigued to want to know more. But, really, it doesn't matter what business you're in today. There is no hiding behind the camera. You've got to get out in
no,
front of that camera somewhere along the line, whether it's just
absolutely.
doing some YouTubes to present what you're doing, or whether you are being interviewed, whether you're having to get up and present something in front of people, there's
Mm,
going to be a camera on you. And it's like,
absolutely.
don't fear the camera. If you are feeling comfortable with who you are, all you're doing
Mm,
is learning a technique and how to present yourself. All it is taking the essence of you and all that you have to give and
mm.
putting it into a format that once it's action, you know how to do.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And and again, I come back to the term active awareness. It's being actively aware of what you just said. It's through it's technique. It's a camera. Oh yeah, so I have to do X, Y, Z to make sure that I'm engaging through that
Yeah.
dehumanizing advice, not advice, dehumanizing device. I'm a mime artist, never let a mime artist start talking, you can't shut them up. Um, so, so it always comes back to the humanity. It
Yes.
always comes back to the
And we're
deeply human.
hungry for that. We are hungry for
Absolutely.
that. And anything that we do, we want to know we're being spoken to, not at,
Yes. Yes,
right?
indeed. And not assumptions made about
Right.
who we are, what we're doing, what we know or don't know.
Right.
So it's a very delicate um, interaction. I mean, I have a background in engineering. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can't get less personal than engineering in a sense. So when I coach engineers, I can relate to them.
Mm.
I understand that they're very, very, very skilled at what they do. That the roads we drive and the bridges we drive across
Right.
the stuff when we drive across them, all those things are super important. But they're engineers, and I'm generalizing. I'm not a psychologist. I wouldn't bloody know, but engineers are typically really pretty ordinary at
Try.
communicating what they do
Try.
because they're so passionate about what they do, but it's so technical,
Yes.
and that applies to IT people as well, not
Yeah.
just engineers. So finding the humanity
Yes.
within that technical person is a great challenge. I love it. I love the
Yeah.
challenge. I love finding out what it is about about this person that makes them. And then you find out that on the side they volunteer for Meals on Wheels or something like
Yes.
that. And fantastic. Oh, okay. That's another side of your personality that I need to know about, because then I know how to utilize that and how you can utilize that to enhance your
Mm.
professional communication,
I
whatever.
think that, one of the things that we get lost on is we identify people by what they're doing, not
Mm.
by who they are or what they're being, right?
Indeed. Indeed.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
be the person doing what you're doing, not
Mm.
doing the being. And I think, my son-in-law is an engineer, but he's
Right.
also a graphic artist and he's incredibly good. He
Mm.
designed my book cover, and he's I can go to him with any tech problem, but also when we get into the creator source, in fact, actually he's going to set it up that I'm actually going to interview AI, which I'm rather intrigued to find
Wow.
out. I'm looking forward to that one. And we talk tech when my daughter is not interested at all, but we can talk tech, but we're talking tech from a creative point of view.
Mm.
The
Mm.
application of tech and how it can cause advancements, not take things away, not be the devil's advocate, but the creative side of things, of how we
Mm.
can use it
Mm.
as a tool, right?
Yeah.
As all these things are, to actually enhance and make things better. And, and
Indeed.
and I think because of his engineering mind, he's able to look at the artistry in a way, which probably like yourself, that can bring about the building blocks in order for that
Mm.
artistry to really grow.
Indeed. Absolutely. It's how it's manifested. The art has to be built, by
Yes.
an engineer. I mean, when I used to say when I was designing sets for television or theatre, someone once said, "Oh, is your engineering background a disadvantage?" I went, "No, quite the opposite.
Yes.
Because when I design a set, I know A, that it can be built,
Yes.
and B, that it won't fall apart halfway through the run, and C, that it's going to fit through the stage doors. You'd be
Yes.
astounded at how many times sets
Yeah.
have designed and built and they don't fit in the theatre or the studio or whatever. So there's a practical aspect to the art that I do in whatever content, whether it's engineer, whether it's design or performance. There's always a technical aspect. There has to be. I mean,
Yes.
it's performing and presenting. It's like two halves of the brain.
Mm.
There's a yes, you're playing. If you're on stage, you're playing a character, so you've got to be in that character. But at the same time, the other half of your brain's going, "Am I standing in the light? I'll hold that moment a little bit longer for
Yeah.
that particular audience." Yeah, there's a conscious process happening all of the time, as well as the character kind of being depicted. So it's it's the yin and the yang. It's the balance between
Yeah.
the
But it's
aesthetic and
also
the
it's
practical.
knowing your format. Like my mother was a stage actress. So on the stage, you're projecting. Right? In the radio,
Indeed.
you're bringing it down. On
Mm,
video, there's a different form of emphasis because now it is actually your body is speaking, but you don't want the actress over body, right? It's how
no,
does your
no.
body speak along with your voice, which is a little of a kind of a bit of a radio voice, not
Mm,
the stage voice, but you need a bit of the body, but not the full stage body. And it's just,
absolutely.
how to actually manifest that. Now, once you've got to know the technique and you're comfortable with it, now that can just be applied to the passion of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And now you've got something that you feel comfortable in being,
Mm.
that other people are going to really feel your message.
Indeed, it's almost the vehicle for the passion
Yeah.
to be delivered,
Yes.
really. And
Yes.
I mean, one of the things I do when I'm working with people, like I was a few weeks ago, I was working with a group of 15 people in a company, the staff and the business owners, and one of the things I like doing in that context, because we're sitting around for 2 days, and they all have glasses of water in front of them. One of the things I love doing is to make them in super slow motion.
Mm.
Just pick up a glass of water and have a sip, and they all go too fast. No, too fast. Just super slow motion. And what that does is it makes a very unconscious process that we
Yes.
do all the time, makes
Yeah.
it absolutely conscious, because you have to move so slowly to,
And you're
obviously
being
they've got to
deliberate.
swallow at the right speed,
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
drown.
Yeah.
You're being very deliberate. You're absolutely right. You're
Yeah.
being absolutely deliberate. And that makes you think about, well, what is it that you're doing? Because in a meeting, if you people read body language. Yeah, someone once said to me, "Oh, people, body language. Yeah, you're a mime artist, so you do it." We all read body language
Yes, we
all the
do.
time. We just
We
do
can
it
know when people
unconsciously.
feel put off or we're inviting. Yeah.
That's right.
It's
I
subliminal. We
mean,
don't realize we're
subliminal,
reading
we
it.
don't realize. I happen to do it as a career, so yes, it's got to be
Yes.
conscious. But we all do it all the time. I refuse to believe that 100 years of technology have
Mm.
negated 1 million years of evolution. Yeah, we
Yes.
are an animal species that we read body language all the time,
Hmm.
and so I make them do the slow motion thing, to make them conscious of how they take a sip of water, whether it's a quick gulp
Yeah.
or a slow considered sip, tells the other people in the room how they're feeling at the time.
Mm.
And often you'll find that this is a very subtle, delicate kind of example, but often you find when someone speaks in a meeting, they immediately take a quick sip of water straight after because
Yes.
they're anxious and the
Yeah.
throat's dry and sort of stuff. So my advice is, I'll just hold off for a moment and then do it in a choreographed way and do it
Yeah.
slowly, because otherwise you're telling people that you've just said something and you're really uncomfortable about saying it or whatever, or anxious or nervous, whatever. I mean, that's just one small example.
Yes. Take the pause.
Yes, take the
Take the
pause.
pause. Have that sip
So
of water. Let them digest it. Now you're ready for the next bit.
indeed, it's choreography.
Mm.
It's just choreography, and that sounds a bit sort of, if I can use the word wanky,
No,
but
it's what we all do, but we don't know we're doing it.
we don't know we're doing it. Absolutely, and in fact, I quote, because you don't live in Australia, you probably don't know who Barry Jones is, but he used to be a quizmaster many decades ago on television. He was a genius, and he's got like 3 PhDs and all. He became a politician eventually. But
Poor
he
guy.
once said Australia. He said, Australia is the only country in the world where being called intellectuals an insult. And so when, in my context, because I have the word DR in front of my name, because I've got a doctorate, I can legitimately call myself Dr. Chris Willems. Um, the business world can be quite suspicious of that, or quite skeptical about that.
Yeah.
Just so they can be quite skeptical about the academic, the theory, the
Mm.
theoretical. Um, and they can equally be quite skeptical about someone in the arts
Mm.
in Australia. And you'll have to
Good.
excuse the expression that, the arty wanker and there's the academic wanker, both of which boxes I tick. Uh, but but
Capital
it's a
W there, huh?
indeed. But it's applying. A delicate way of putting it. It's the word starts with it's the word it's anchor that starts with a
Mm.
W.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a delicate balance to be struck between the credibility that brings, the genuine credibility that those backgrounds bring, and applying that to a a practical context. Balancing the you've got to make the academic functional and the functional academic, or the theory functional and the functional
Yes.
theoretically valid. So, and that's really been my career for the last 20 something years
Did
in
you
doing
ever
that.
see Trevor Noah's who's a comedian here, South African actually, he's half black, half white, so he was born a crime. A
Right.
brilliant young comedian who just has the ability to be so well balanced and see things from both sides. And he ran the Daily Show for 6 years here. But
Right.
he did a wonderful skit on Obama meeting oh God,
Not Trump.
Nelson Mandela,
Oh,
right?
oh,
Right.
oh,
And so the whole skit is like Nelson Mandela getting Obama to talk slower and more deliberately. And it is hilarious, absolutely hilarious. But you can't listen to Obama after that and the deliberate way that he speaks without thinking about that skit, you know?
and two of the best presenters on the
Yes.
planet ever,
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela and Barack Obama,
Yeah.
the considered way, and it's all genuine.
Yes.
Particularly Mandela,
Yeah.
given his. Well, I was talking to discussing him just the other day. 27 years of being in prison.
Yes.
Yeah, that
I
gives
was
you.
actually on that island at an event when he was there.
Oh wow! But the considered depth of consideration,
Yeah.
of thought behind every word, every syllable he chose. Obama, the context is quite different with
Mm.
Obama, but what a great orator he
Yeah, I
is.
know.
And again, the there's a stature with
Hmm.
those people. There's a kind of
Yes.
stature that's it comes from their physical manifestation of how they come across, and the vocal manifestation of what they say and how they say it, and the depth of what they say.
The rhythm
It's
and
it's
the pause.
rhythm and the pause.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm really bad at taking my own advice. In mime, there's this, I always say the less you do, the more powerful it is.
Yes.
When I start talking, I babble on. And I have to I have to make myself stop, or get people such as yourself to say, Chris, shut up for a moment.
I'll just jump in.
Because never let a mime artist start talking. You can't shut them up, and they talk too fast. So the equivalent, and I say it to my clients all the time: the less you do, the more powerful it is. So stillness is much more powerful than movement. Just like
Poignant.
pause is much more powerful than continuous talking, because we stop listening. We stop listening
Yes.
because we're being bombarded with words all the time.
Right. Well,
And so,
it's setting the stage, isn't it? You know, when you listen to, and actually, I mean, I really would highly recommend listening to Trevor Noah, even on his past shows of The Daily Show, which they're all up on in Comedy Central. Um, he had a wonderful way of interviewing, but it was those moments in between where he would talk about some event that's going on. And the poor guy, unfortunately, just had Trumpster stuff the
no,
whole time. And I think that's the reason why he finally left, is I just can't make a joke about this guy anymore, you know. And it's enough is
already.
enough, you know. But he is a beautiful way, the way he could take a subject and bring about in such a beautiful, profound, and yes, the way he spoke. It was
Mm,
deliberate, it was balanced, it wasn't
mm,
attacking, but at the same time, it brought about a different point of view, and in a way that people stop laughing and start listening. And he's
indeed.
a young man with such artistry. His book is fantastic. And he was interviewed by Jay Shetty, the mental guru. And I have to say that Trevor took that one. I mean, like the profoundness and everything that's there. Because
Mm,
we listen. I remember the first time I listened to Obama, I didn't even know anything about him. And I heard him speak. And this man's got my attention.
yes, absolutely. Because he doesn't keep talking. Because
Yeah.
he's quiet. He allows us in.
Yes.
He invites us into the
To
conversation, and
digest.
to
To
digest. To
digest what
consider
he's
and
saying,
digest.
and then hungry for the next bit. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely.
engaged.
And
Yes.
when one is presenting, and the adrenaline's pumping through, especially in the live situation, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
Because the adrenaline makes us think we're going at a really reasonable speed, but we're going 10 times faster than
I
we think
know.
we are.
I know.
And we don't allow.
I
Yeah.
probably do that because I'm in flow. And I think it's just a question of
Oh,
which wind is behind me at the time. You
no,
know?
no, no, no. Again, because you've been doing this and you're familiar with the medium in which you're working, it's great because the pace. You've got to strike a balance between pace and pause, and
Mm,
and also just feeding information and keeping talking. Because if you don't keep talking, people
yeah,
stop listening.
exactly.
So,
Yes.
yes, indeed. So again, I come back to the active awareness, the consciousness of what
Yeah.
we do, and making it as engaging as possible. When one is presenting, one needs to be conscious of stopping. Just
Yes.
stop and allow the words to settle, allow the picture to settle, the picture of the body language to settle. Stillness is much more powerful than movement. Stop, just stop and wait for. I had this expression that I use with clients, like when they rehearse getting up to a podium to start speaking, make them wait, make them wait, make them
Yes.
wait. Just make
Yes.
them wait for a moment until you're ready. Because I've had instances where presenters are so nervous they started speaking before they even got to the podium and the microphone. They want to get over and done with as soon as
Yes.
possible.
Yeah.
And I can understand that because, and I mean, when I was performing, as doing solo shows, virtually every performance, and I did hundreds of them, virtually every performance, I'll be standing on stage going, why do I do this? I hate doing this. I get so nervous. Why do I do this? And then
You get
the
out there and do
pre-show
it.
is
Yeah.
playing, and you step on stage and go,
Ah,
ta-da!
exactly.
And then an hour later, you're getting a standing ovation. You go, that's why I do it, because it
Yeah,
feels really
exactly.
good.
What I do
and,
when I do actual physical guest speaking, I have to feel my energy of the audience. So
oh, absolutely.
what I do
Yeah.
is, hi, do you mind, all of you, if you just either stand up, if you can't stand up, that's fine. But I want everyone to take a few deep breaths,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Okay,
indeed.
are we
Yeah.
all feeling good? Have we left the last hour behind?
Mm,
Right?
mm,
And very often I may have bullet points of what I want to talk about, but very often I actually let the audience tell me what I need to talk
mm.
about,
Wow, that's
because
lovely. Yeah.
I can't, I've had people, no, you've got to say this, you've got, and this is why I think probably can't do a TED talk, because they want you to say exactly what the piece of paper is. And
mm,
and I
mm, mm.
couldn't do that because I am going to go with what the wisdom is telling me to go.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
And the
absolutely.
content, the baseline of what I was going to say is there, but how I'm going to say it is depending up to
Mm,
my audience. And I think that is this
indeed,
trust your feel, right? You know what you
absolutely.
want to say, you know what you want to
Yes.
get across, but let
Mm,
that audience's energy guide you sometimes in the rhythm of how you do it.
mm, indeed, indeed, and that's what a lovely thing to do, to essentially invite the audience into
Mm.
a conversation, a
Yes.
conversation.
And that's actually something I like to do is after the talk is have question answer period and not just go off
Absolutely.
grandstanding. I love that engagement, right? Yeah.
Indeed, I know it's great because that's when the genuine conversations
Yes.
happen, because
Yes.
people are interested to know more. They
Yeah.
want to know that bit of detail. Well,
Yeah.
how did you do? Why did you
Yeah.
say that?
Mm,
Excuse me. And that's true engagement,
mm.
and that works well on screen as well. I
Yes.
mean, I ran a webinar just the other day, and at the end of it, there was a Q&A. I went, oh, this feels really good,
Mm,
because people, you're having in a very one-way kind of
mm.
context, i.e. on screen, you're having a two-way conversation, and that
Yes.
makes it like we're doing now. So it makes it all the more human, and it's the humanness that we need to
Yes.
retain in all of our professional interactions, and increasingly, because we're fighting the the vehicle of technology is great, but we're fighting the dehumanizing effect of that
Of it. And
technology.
that's up to us. It's up to us.
Yeah.
We can take this technology as a tool and keep it humanized, or we can give in and
Mm,
let it take over. That is our choice. But at the same
indeed,
time, we've got to understand no matter what business we're doing, there's generally somebody else out there doing it. Now,
absolutely.
why do people want to come to you? Not because you're bigger and better and can faster and this and that. It's because you're
Mhm.
you.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And it's again, it comes down to human contact,
Yes.
because we respond, irrespective of the technology, we respond to the other human being at the other side of the table, or at the other side of the camera lens.
Yeah.
That's who we respond to, or not, depending on who they are, and
Connection.
it's about connection. It's
It
about human
is.
connection.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We want to
Um,
feel that person has talked to us. All right.
yes,
And we want to
yes.
feel that we're heard in what they're saying. And if you're talking to a client, are you just selling and pitching? Or are you
Mm.
listening to what they need?
Indeed, indeed, and solving their problem for them, or with
Yes.
them, and
With them.
it's always a collaborative process. It's
Yes.
always a with, not I will solve your problem.
Yeah.
What's your problem? What's your issue?
Yes.
What's your challenge? Let's
Yes.
work together to work out how to A, define it, and B, address it, and C, solve it. Hopefully,
There is
and
or a solution. Let's find it together.
yes, absolutely,
Right.
and it's the unique solution for that
Yes.
person,
Yes.
and
And
that's
there's
the
no one
point.
size fits all again, right? And that
Absolutely.
comes again down to your business. How flexible are you in your business to be
Yeah.
adaptable to each of your clientele?
Indeed, and that's why I only have 5 clients at a time
Mm,
in any one cohort, because that allows me to work with each of those clients to the extent that they deserve, and
yes.
and and we can establish that relationship. If I'm working with 1,000 people, there's a limit to how personal you can be with 1,000 people, or even 100. Working with 15 a few weeks ago was over 2 days, and holding them for 2 days, that was an interesting challenge. And yet and so the depth of the relationship with each person is not quite as deep as one-to-one. However, within that context, you can still
Yes.
build in an awful lot of personal engagement, with each of those 15 people, with
Yeah.
each of them,
Because you have
ranging
actually
from
no idea with each of those 15 people of how
mm,
they expand, how they connect, and how the beautiful matrix
absolutely.
that comes out of that, right?
Yeah,
And again, back to
absolutely.
the allow. Don't dictate how it should be.
No,
Present how you see it, and then
mm,
allow it to take on a life of its own.
indeed. Well, and in that context, I mean, with 15 people, two of whom were the owners of the business,
Right.
and the rest were staff down to the sort of receptionist, and you go, well, okay, how do we balance? How do we get across all of those different levels of responsibility and authority,
And how do
um,
we listen to
and how
everybody
do we
equally?
and how do they listen to
Yeah.
each other?
Yes.
Is someone who's a salesperson going to be intimidated by the fact that the business owner is sitting there listening
Yeah.
to what they're saying and how they're saying it?
That's the
So
vulnerability.
finding, yeah, vulnerability,
Yeah.
absolutely, but but I was delighted in this case to be able to even everybody out. So the business owner felt one of the troops,
and the
and
others
as
felt heard.
people in the reception,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so they were all vulnerable, and that's one of the, as we talked about before, one of the skills in doing what we do is to allow the vulnerability to
yes,
manifest. You can't drag it out of people.
no,
You have to create the circumstances and the relationship through which that vulnerability can be manifested, and people feel
this
comfortable enough to share
safe
that vulnerability.
place, safe
Safe place,
place.
very
Right.
safe
Why do
place.
people fear
Mm.
vulnerability? Because of fear itself. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to manipulate? Am I putting myself over at exposure? If you give them a safe place, and that very often is you sharing your vulnerability, for them to
Absolutely.
go,
Yes.
okay, you've just revealed
Mm.
your vulnerability. I guess I
Mm.
can put a step forward. And then that
Yes.
trust factor builds up. This is a safe place, right? And
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
takes sometimes a little bit of time, but it most certainly is how do you present it in a way where you are inviting enough? I always say
Mm.
inspiration begets invitation. When you inspire someone, the invitation is there,
Yes,
right?
indeed.
What you
Yeah.
do with that invitation is up to you, but that invitation is there because of the inspiration. And
Mm.
if they feel
Mm.
I'm inspired by who you are and what you do and how you do it, then
Mm.
I want to
Mm.
take that step into finding that safe place where I feel I can be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And because of the work that you do in this context, you are obviously very skilled at doing that. You're obviously very skilled at creating that safe place where people such as myself, your guests, can feel like they can open up and expose their own vulnerabilities to you. And that's a fantastic skill to have. And that's why you're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
Because you have that sensitivity, and you allow us to be open and vulnerable, and that's a fantastic skill. Not everyone can do that. In
But
fact,
that's a
a lot
gift to
of people
everybody
can't.
else. Your vulnerability, your honesty, your own idiosyncrasies that happen
Mm,
along the way shows other people, yes, you can be successful at what you do and still be vulnerable or still be quirky or still
yeah.
have battles and challenges along the ways. I'm
Mm.
human. This is my achievement.
That's right. I'm human. That's the core of it. I'm
Yeah,
human.
yeah,
And again, you know, I refuse to believe that 100 years of technology have negated the
yeah.
humanness
No.
of a million years of evolution. We are human beings. We're a human species, and we need to relate. And that's becoming more and more apparent
Evident. Yes.
post-COVID, evident, thank you, post-COVID, where I've been going to chambers of commerce meetings and a few things like that. Just now that it's near the end of the year, and so there's all sorts of functions happening,
Mm,
and you go along to those, and you can feel it's
mm,
palpable in the room, the relief of
yes,
people being able to talk to each other across the table again,
I know.
and which is because I coach people in presenting to camera.
Yes, I know.
But I'm very, very conscious of how important it is to whenever possible, to make those meetings person to person, face to face,
And the things
because
that
we,
comfortability of face
yeah,
to face, bring that
yeah,
to the camera. There goes
yes.
that hand
And yeah,
again.
I met
Bring it
someone
to
at
the
a
camera,
function.
right?
Well, indeed, I met someone at a function the other day, and I, for a moment, I didn't recognise her. I said, I didn't recognise you in three dimensions because I've only had Zoom meetings with her, and there's a slight difference. We can vaguely
Yeah.
recognise, but seeing people in three dimensions is so important. It's so important that we have to remind ourselves from time to time how important that is. And it's very easy, especially as a small business owner, it's very easy to become isolated and isolate and deliberately isolate oneself as well, because it feels safer. But we have to get out there. We have to engage with people, because it's a human to human business, and all businesses are human to human. Ultimately, business is about two people talking to each other. That's pretty much it. When you trip over your power lead and all the technology fails, what's left? Two people talking to each other. That's it.
Exactly. And I generally 7 hours a day doing this, interviewing people everywhere, pre-interviewing. Sometimes somebody would say to me, "Can we just have a conversation?" Right.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is actually when I've actually physically met people I've interviewed, there is no
Mm.
different feeling. We got each
No.
other's signature. All we're doing now is in the flesh, right?
Yes,
And it's
that's
like
right.
if this is the only way that you can do it, and for me, this is obviously my platform. And just from COVID, I'm also in the midst of moving to a different city in the next few months, and I'm looking after grandchildren and all of that type of thing as well. So my life has kind of been rather consumed by everything. But that was something I had to be aware of, that I
Mm.
was becoming way too much online. And that was
Yes.
becoming my community, which is great. I love it. I get to meet people from all over the
Mm.
world. They're absolutely
Yes,
wonderful.
absolutely. Yes.
But I've got to remember the physical,
Yes.
the physical interactions as well, because they leave you with a different, just a different flavor. That's really
Mm.
good. And we all
Yes.
need, I sleep with a teddy bear, for Christ's sake. I like to hug something. I miss hugging something. I've just had 2 days of hugging my grandchildren. They're probably relieved grandma's gone.
Isn't that fantastic?
And
Yes,
I think, get real isn't, this whole, I think, line, I think this is something that COVID did actually, because we went so much online. And I think one of
mm,
the problems with it is that in this professionalism, we used to have this professionalism. And now
yes.
we really want, yes, bring your professionalism, but be organic in a way that I can relate to you, that I would
Mm,
actually look at you and want to have a cup of coffee with you. I'd want to
yeah.
connect with you. That's the important thing.
It's
Which I
kind of
know that you've got to rush off to somewhere to
no,
do
no,
a
it's fine.
presentation. No, you're
Fine.
okay? Good, good.
I'm enjoying this too much.
Okay.
You're absolutely right, and the word that occurs to me is personalism, because
Mm.
we need the professionalism. Yes, absolutely needs to be,
Yes,
but the personalism that's wrapped in
yes.
is so important to keep relationships ticking.
Yeah,
Business is about relationships, so we can't get away from it. I don't
100%.
want to get away from it. It's such an obvious thing. And again, we go back to, yes, technology is great, but it
How do
can
you
be a
how
real
do you
barrier.
be that in every aspect? And then, the same thing you're talking about, being on the camera, being that authentic self in a
Mm,
professional manner. That
mm,
goes across the board in your social media. That goes across the board. I look at people's websites. Is it a reflection of who they are? I'm going, somebody else has done that website. It does not represent you. I don't see any
no,
flavor of you in there, right? And
indeed.
there was an interesting thing of somebody telling me that she was interacting with this person online, through social media, and she finally got to meet them. And they said, I don't know who the hell you are. It was the assistant she was talking to the whole time. And
Yes,
what does that do? It's, yes, you can hire people to do a certain amount of posting and a certain amount of that. But when it comes to interaction, folks, I will say, I take an hour a
yeah,
day on my social medias interacting, wishing people happy birthday. And this is part of my business day,
yeah,
that personal
right.
interaction. And because we can make this cyber world interactive and have relationships with it if we
Mm,
can't meet physically in person. But please don't bring a facade to people
no,
and
no,
then
indeed.
expect people then when they actually do meet you or kind of then have an interaction with you that, hang on, you're not the same
Mm.
person.
It's very interesting. I had the reverse experience for quite recently. I met someone at a business function, and she's a lovely, lovely lady. Did marketing stuff, and and we were having a conversation, and then it turned out I assumed she was from Brisbane, where I live, but she was from Perth, WA, West Australia, and I ended up going. She happened to be in Brisbane and came to this function. She was a lovely human being with a fantastic personality. I eventually went to her website. There was this video that she'd done, and that was really not very good at all. Not. I'm not talking technical. I'm
Mm,
talking the
yeah.
personality that
Yes.
she has was not coming
Did
across. And
not
I
compute.
you know, and so I'm always very, very cautious about doing this because it feels like I'm just sort of fishing for work and stuff. And I had a genuine interest in finding out why. And I said, oh, look, so I rang her up and I said, look, I had a look at your website and the video. She said, oh, yeah, I just did it in a real hurry and it's awful, I know. But the point is, it's up there. So
Yes.
the first impression that people are getting is one that
Yes.
doesn't reflect her at
It's
all.
it's not your invitation, darling. It's a deterrent.
And people don't know you did it in a hurry. They don't
Yeah.
care.
Hmm.
Um, don't do either. You take it down or don't do it. Redo it. Just redo it,
Mm.
and take a little bit more time to do it, and make sure your personality actually comes across because you're doing
Yes.
yourself a serious
Yeah.
disservice.
Yeah.
Because what we're seeing, our first impression of you via your website, is not, doesn't reflect the vivacious, engaging personality that you are.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, it was kind of, yeah, it was a bit of
It
an
can be
awkward moment.
off-putting. It can be
Yes.
off-putting for people, right? The
Yep.
same aspect, though, is that you have somebody who puts up something very professional, and they've had
Mm.
somebody kind of, direct it, and it looks like a little
Just
mini
Photoshop
movie.
it.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
all right. And then you actually kind of get to kind of meet them and go, huh?
Yeah, indeed.
I don't know how to relate to this person because it's not the same as that person, or that person is nowhere near the person you really are. Why are you not being yourself?
Yes, yes, indeed. But it's got to be the stylized version of you. It's got to be, it's
Yes.
not the wakes
Yeah.
up in the
Yeah.
morning and you or your family or the cat sees. Yes, there's got to be an element of that, but it's got to be the professional, or what did I say? The personalism
Yes.
version
I like that.
of the professional
Yeah.
you. So do I might use that one.
Yeah, yeah, you've got to remember that one.
You see,
You
that's
got
it's
you
like,
if you meet somebody, I mean, well, I go out, my makeup is on, even if I'm going to the grocery store, because you never know who you're going to meet. And I'm always handing out my cards. I'm always talking to people about podcasts. And it just because I'm always conversing with people. I could
yes, indeed.
stand, somewhere completely in the dark, somebody will come and talk to me. It's just the way it
Mm.
is, right?
Yeah, well,
And
that's great.
you
Yeah.
never know who you're going to meet when. And that means if you're having to put on a business face now, it's like in concurrent, it is people being able to meet you authentically who you are at all times. Now, I can be friendly and outgoing and this and that. It's a slightly different to when I'm putting on the professional hat, but the person underneath the hat must be the same.
Absolutely. It's a stylized version of you, but it's
Yeah.
got to be you. So you
Yes.
slide up and down the audio fade and
Yeah.
along the to determine, preferably before the event, if you have the chance to work out, okay, which of what balance of stuff is important for this particular
Yes.
presentation or meeting or interaction or whatever. So it's again there's a consciousness about that, an active awareness, a consciousness that we bring and need to bring to that, the professionalism to maintain the personalism within the professionalism as well, and because that's who we relate to. And just going back to something we were talking about before about research and art, and the journey takes you to unexpected places, and you do slight detours, and you come to the gravitational pull. This conversation has been fantastic. This conversation has taken me to places that I didn't expect to go. Um, and that's it's a live, active conversation, and
Yes.
it's a live, active, professional and personal interaction, even via the two-dimensionality of the screen, and this conversation has highlighted yet again how important the personal is within the professional. So it's being open to going places you weren't expecting
Yes.
is a really, really important thing. Whether it's
I want to add to that too, though. I've had things go wrong.
Hmm.
Right? I had, fortunately, a mother of 15 children, and I had a chronic asthma attack in the middle of it, like gasping for breath. And I'd never seen myself have an asthma attack before. So actually seeing myself on camera was triply scary. And she's just going, it's all right, dear. It's okay, dear. Calm down. I'll wait, dear. I'm dear. And I'm, doing all of this. Of course, I cut that out. But of course, I come back afterwards with a very hoarse voice. And the thing is, people say to you, are you going to edit this? Are you going to edit that? And I go, no.
No,
I edit
no.
out things that, really are, if there's big gaps or there's this or that. If people drop, oh, sorry, they've dropped. I pause for a moment. They're back. Well, sorry, folks, we had a drop, right? I
Yeah,
find
yeah,
owning it instead of trying to fix it and then it doesn't sync right. It just makes it
yeah,
again more human because things will go wrong. How do you handle the going wrong?
yeah. Does it reach you? Does it touch you? That's more
Yeah.
important than the technical perfection.
Yes.
And another really good example, very recent example. I was working with a client just on Monday. We were doing a shoot, and she had a series of pieces to do, and she was in a bit of avoidance because she was trying to plan so much that I said, "Look, let's just start shooting and see
Yeah.
where we go. You know what you've got to say."
Yeah.
And we shot on location, various locations within one location for 6 hours. It was a really long shoot, and I didn't think she'd have the stamina because she's not young, the stamina to do that, but she did it really well. And right at the end, there was this one piece that was a very personal piece, and partly because she was so tired and
Let the
I
guard
think
down.
it was just we did one take, and it went for about 2 minutes, which is a long time on camera, straight to camera. She did one take, beautiful. And I said, we're not going to do a second take. I said, you won't
Yeah.
do it like that again.
Yeah.
And it was just stunningly beautiful and very, very touching piece, and
Mm.
absolutely sincere, absolutely from the
Yeah.
heart. And that's, again, a couple of little technical things, a bit of background noise, some crows, but who cares? Who
That
gives a
goes.
toss?
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
That's what people relate to.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is like, again, are you talking to me? Can I relate to what you're saying? Do I feel a part of this conversation? And I say these podcasts, people are eavesdropping on our conversation.
Yes.
And I hope that you got some good nectar from it, right? And
Yes.
it's
The
like,
glass to the wall.
exactly. Because we're having fun. But people always say afterwards, like, oh gosh, we covered so much. And I said, yes, that's the way I
Yeah.
like it. I'm
Yes,
not doing
indeed.
the 10, 15-minute shows. That's when we're just warming up. I like it
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
just let things loose and then
Mm.
see what shakes out, right?
Indeed,
And
there's a depth to be explored, consciously
yes,
or otherwise. There's a depth to
yes,
be, and the organic way in which we've explored that depth, or those depths, and several of them in different contexts, has been fantastic. And again, it highlights exactly what you're saying. It takes time. It
yeah,
takes time for the trust to build, and I mean the trust came pretty quickly, but to the depth of a conversation.
mm.
It's a conversation that we don't have anymore because we've got 3 seconds to grab people's attention on video before that.
Well, those aren't the people
Yeah,
that I play
one
to.
one
If
click
that's all
away
the
from
attention
it.
you've got, you bypass us.
Well, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but when there's 500 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute, and it's not a
Yes,
typo, every
right.
minute, you've got to find a way of cutting through that to
Yeah,
get people's attention initially. But once you've got their attention, you need to
yeah.
maintain by what you say and how you say it and how you relate to them or not. And so,
I actually
yeah,
like kind of what I call the picket fence. Like when
mm,
people say, I listened to this. Have
mm,
you heard that? This person was talking about that. I'm going to send you the link, right?
right, right,
And I
right.
think,
Yes,
okay, it may take longer to build, but what you're
mm,
doing is getting people's experience with what they've seen and heard
yes,
being shared out with others, like it was with you. You listened to Paul Langer, right?
mm,
And then go, okay, I'm interested in having a podcast with you from what you said. Although his show was totally different to the one we've done, right?
absolutely. Yes, yes, indeed.
And
But from sorry, go on. I
no, no,
won't interrupt.
I just feel that if we're not so quick to kind of grab the numbers, I've got it, how many thousands of followers, how many this and how many of that, and just looked at how many times is it being shared, how many times are people talking about it, how
Mm,
many times are people mulling over what you've said, and
mm.
then may want to reach over. Be patient again.
Yes, be patient. Absolutely. Yeah, hard to do,
Yes.
easy to say, harder to do. But
Yep.
when you want stuff to happen, but in my life, I've found, because I'm old and wise, no,
Sure, I'm
great.
older than you.
Oh, I don't think
Little
so.
off 70.
I found, you can bang your head against the wall and go, this has to happen. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Yes,
Make it happen. And the minute you stop
that's when it happens.
pushing, that's when it happens.
I know.
Uh,
Resistance is futile.
Yeah.
Surrender.
Around about this time last year, I, for the previous 10 years, I had an underpaid part-time job, but a very responsible one as the director of higher education at a performing arts
Mm.
college. And I decided after 10 years, I needed to stop. The thing that made me stop was I had a hip replacement. And so I was not that mobile, but some friends were down in Tasmania, sitting beside a creek, looking for the platypuses, but there'd been some flood water come through. So they said, oh, there probably won't be any there because the water's moving too fast. They don't like fast moving water. So I'm sitting there on this park bench next to the creek where my wife and our friends were looking for the platypuses. And my friend came up, Jonathan came up, and he said, "What are you doing, Chris?" I said, "I'm having an existential crisis." And I was just saying, and that being forced to stop,
Yes.
being in a different environment, being in
Yes.
a
The
physical environment,
redirect.
the redirect, and you just stop.
Yeah.
And it's only then, and once even though I kept working, but I said to them, I'm leaving by the
Yeah.
10th of November, whatever it was, having made the decision, having stopped fighting it'd become a bureaucratic nightmare, the position, nothing creative at all. And so, but having made the decision, even though I was still in there, knowing I was going
Mm.
was just everything lifted. It was fantastic. So when you stop doing the thing that's killing you,
Yes.
in fact, someone said, I told them I was leaving. They said, oh, thank Christ for that, because it was killing you. But you don't realize when you're inside the situation, you don't realize how destructive it is. And so when you stop, all of a sudden things fall into place, things open up. And it's so important to make yourself
begin to see at the paths, right? Because you've stopped your breathing, you've downloaded, and now you can see there's another path in front of you. And that's the beauty of it. That was one of the gifts from COVID, was everybody had to pause. And how many people realize, I'm just not going down that road anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm redirecting. You know, I've just been on this treadmill without realizing. I've become the hamster constantly on the wheel. I want to break the cycle. And, you know, I call it the nudge, nudge, wink, or the cosmic 2x4. Right? So nudge, nudge, wink, the universe is telling us, no, it's time to stop, or it's time to redirect. And then the cosmic 2x4 comes along and says, can you hear me now?
What a great collection of analogies in one.
But we all going to get them if we don't pay attention.
No,
I've had quite a few of them. I should have concussions by now.
But we're like the human race. We're microcosms of the human race. We don't learn from experience. Well, sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't.
Eventually, we learn. Eventually.
Yeah, fundamentally we learn, but we're stubbornly stupid as well. Yes. We keep doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But eventually, there's enough 4x2s to remind us, the slapping us around the head, to remind us to actually stop, to maybe have a different approach.
One of the things I think that people get afraid of, especially when you're getting up there in age, is that if I stop, there will be nothing else. No, stopping, it's actually allowing something else to be presented.
Absolutely.
Our book isn't over. We've just got another chapter to go. That's all. A few more chapters to go, right?
Absolutely.
I started this at 57. I had no idea what a podcast was when I first started. Right. So
I didn't know what theatre was when I started.
Exactly. Engineer, right?
The chance comment by a friend literally changed my life.
Yeah, exactly.
That quickly.
And you were willing to go and inquire.
Yes.
Right? Instead of going, well, I don't know what theatre is. No, that's for this kind of people. And instead, it's like, oh, okay, let's go check it out. And I think this is when we allow ourselves, we discover how courageous we are, how strong we are, how many abilities we have, and how flexible and resilient we are if we allow ourselves to be.
And how adaptable we can be when we choose to be. When we choose to allow ourselves to be adaptable.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's the letting go. The letting go is just as important, probably more important than the banging your head against the wall, trying. Because one of my songs, I'm a musician as well. I write songs. I put out a couple of albums. One of my songs, it says, you can sit scotch in hand, watch those shadows inch their way across the land, trust your angel to provide guiding light. You can sit by the phone, feel so desperately alone until the universe for just once gets it right.
Exactly.
And trusting the universe to get it right is sorry, that was more of the line than I was going to quote, but I had to sort of ease into it. I haven't played that song for a long time. But till the universe for once just gets it right. But the universe generally gets it right. Not just for once.
I have found, and this is an absolute, honestly promise, that every time I have tried to go from the intellectual or ego, it's never happened. When I've let go and just allowed, okay, I trust you. You know how I want to feel. You know what I want to achieve. I trust you. The door's open.
Yes, indeed.
Every time.
It's remarkable. It really is. And we're still skeptical about it. I find we're still a bit frightened to trust. I think a bit frightened to trust too much.
I've had the other thing is that I trust the universe. I've just found it very, very hard being a human being. Because some humans
another one of my songs is called "Trust No One, Travel by Night."
I want this album. You're speaking my language.
That was the first album. There's two albums. Yes, and when I get time, I'm re-recording some of the songs in the first one. But yeah, the observations that we arrive at through experience, through our lives and through our experience, can be really profound.
Yes.
And actually, there's one of my friends and good friends and colleagues, because I wrote that song like quite a few years ago, and my philosophy is trust no one, travel by night, and my friend Ashley said, I'm going to talk you out of that one day, Chris. And but with again, getting back to technology, it's even worse now. Trust, you can't trust any, like every second email you get's a scam or a spam or
Yes,
whatever,
it
and you
will.
don't trust any of it. So I hold with my philosophy, trust no one, travel by night. Having said that, I'm a very, very trusting person, and sometimes to my detriment, I
I know.
trust people too
It's
much.
trusting someone with weariness.
Wearied trust, I like that.
It's like I want to believe, I'm going to go this far in believing, but
Well, that's the thing. It's like any therapy, really.
Mhm.
If you believe that it will work, it may well. If you
Yeah,
don't believe whatever it is, whether it's chemicals or massage,
yeah,
whatever, um, if you don't believe it's going to work, then it's not going to.
yeah.
Whatever it is, and so we have to let go. We have to trust and let go and believe that whatever therapies or philosophies or whatever will actually work, because they've come from a collective place, a collective
Yes.
consciousness.
I've
Um,
I've been watching the series Loki, which is actually very, very different to, all the adventures type of thing. It's actually quite intriguing. And it talks about kind of different timelines and keeping things in the timeline and not allowing
mm,
it to expand. And I have a movie in my head all the time. So like last night, I was going to come home last night from my daughter's, which was about an hour and 40 away, but it was monsooning rain. And
oh,
last time I did that, I saw a car hydroplane and go on its roof. And I thought, I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to wait for
no,
morning.
no,
But
no.
I get these stupid damn things coming into my mind. And then I'm so intrigued with it. Like, I had about 2 hours sleep because I'm just, because I get fascinated where my mind goes. Yes, because it's where
Yeah,
the universe is taking me. But it's all about, what really is real, like a little matrixy.
mm,
The timelines, all the different dimensions. How many lives am I living on which different planes? And are there the
yeah.
overseers? And can I dive into each one of those and experience some of those things? And it's like I'm getting intrigued by my own thing.
Oh, absolutely, and I mean that's a very artistic kind of approach.
Yeah,
You trust that.
yeah.
Let's just go there. Let's give it a go.
Yes,
And often I find, as an artist, when you're creating, a performance piece or whatever, and you have this idea of, all this is going to work, and it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you go, okay, I'll try entirely the opposite,
yes,
what I thought was going to work, and that works
yes.
because it's the opposite, and
I know.
it's a different. So yeah, it's, trusting where it's going to go, or if it doesn't go there, just do go back to front
But
and
it's also
upside
it's your travel by
down.
night. Because for me, night, that's where my
Mm,
creativity goes into
yeah,
different planes and different places altogether. I just wish kind of I
absolutely.
did have a chip in there that downloaded it all, because come by morning I may have forgotten it.
And that's the other thing. Our subconscious is much clearer than we are,
Oh
because
gosh, yes.
when you're half asleep, when you're in the shower, when you're
Yeah.
mowing the lawn, whatever, all of us, you're not actively thinking
Yes,
about. All of a sudden, these fantastic ideas
I
come to
know.
you. Oh, quick, write that one down, because you'll forget in 10 seconds. You'll forget, because the subconscious will very often solve the problem for you, and irrespective of how much conscious thinking you've got to do the thinking, but
Mhm.
when you again stop thinking, let the subconscious do it, and all of a sudden the solution is there. It's a wonderful thing.
I
A
know I
wonderful
had something the
capacity
other
that we
day
have.
and I thought this is great and I was half asleep and I went for my phone and couldn't find the recorder and I put it down. I can't remember what it is.
No, no, that's right. It's
So
like I was
yes,
playing the guitar the
recorder,
other day.
write it down, even if it's just one little sentence. It
Yeah,
will bring you
yeah,
back there, but you need that hook that will take you back there,
that's
right?
right. And
Mm.
sometimes you write stuff down and you go, "What's that mean?" I
Yeah,
can't
I
read
know.
my own writing.
I can't. I'm terrible. That's my brother is a writer, and he has to write everything by hand first, and a lot of people will speak to that, but I'm
Mm.
dyslexic, which it comes out sometimes when I'm doing a presentation reading somebody's thing. I might read it back to front because
Yeah, yeah.
of being dyslexic. So for me, the computer was where my creativity, my words could really start writing, because I could correct where I couldn't
Right.
in the writing. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
find a way that works for you. Just because, oh, I
Mm.
can't do that. Well, you can't
Mm.
do that. What can you do instead?
Mm. Indeed. What's an alternative way of an
Yeah.
alternative pathway?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So crucial and again, being open to those things, being adaptable, being flexible, and being open, and allowing things to happen, to manifest. It's a fascinating stage of life of coming to these
Yes.
realizations. I mean, people can tell you stuff like that, and you go, "Oh yeah, sure," but until you experience it, as you would have found yourself, until you experience, you go, "Oh, that's what they mean. That's
Yes.
what that means." Yeah.
There's a
I
word I
went to a,
came across a little while ago, which I've adopted, and kind of, it's even in my book, is flawsome, right?
it's
And it's
so what is it?
flawsome. Flawsome.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love the
Okay.
word flawsome. Every single one of us has a flaw and a quirk. If you look at a
Yeah.
diamond with a flaw in it, it's actually more unique, and worth more. We've all
Yep.
got flaws. There are quirks. They're a part of our personality. Why can't we be awesome about them? Right? They've made
What's
us
that?
unique.
Well, again, if go right back to the early part of the conversation and quoting Phil Collins.
Yep.
This doesn't matter if it's not technically perfect. It does it reach you? Does it touch you? Yes, it's
Yes.
flawed. And
Yes.
you leave the flaws in, unless it
Yes.
like massive,
Right.
whatever's. But if you leave the flaws in because they're human,
But what is
otherwise it's quite
perfect?
rare.
What's perfect in somebody's view is not perfect in somebody else's view.
No,
So what,
indeed.
just be flawsome.
Well,
At least.
indeed, and another person I'm very fond of quoting is Jonathan Miller, who he was a neuroscientist, also famously directed operas and Shakespeare's, and he was asked, what's the authentic version of Shakespeare? Because they were talking, Shakespeare's become high art. Shakespeare was written for the peasants 300 years
Yes.
ago, whenever.
Yes.
But Jonathan Miller had a way of directing Shakespeare that was really very engaging and appealing. And he was asked, well, what's the authentic version of Shakespeare? And he said, well, as far as I'm concerned, the authentic version of Shakespeare is the one where Shakespeare said, well, that'll do.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's become this whole industry around Shakespeare and what does it mean? And
The
when I was
depth
doing
of
my
it, the
doctorate,
hidden meaning of
well,
it,
yeah,
the layers of it. Yeah. It's what it
the
means to
legions of
you.
academics.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the legions of academics have built careers on it. And
Yeah.
and when I was doing my doctorate, people would ask me, "What sort of doctorate are you doing?" Well, there's two answers: that one, a useful one, and B, well, I didn't want to write 100,000 words about what color underpants Shakespeare wore every second Tuesday and what effect it had on his work. Okay?
There was actually something on that. What a waste
I
of
don't know if
time.
I just made that up, but that's the point. There are people who, and it's great. That's fantastic. There's certainly a place for that, but whole industries have been built on what Shakespeare might or might not have said, or even
Right.
if it was Shakespeare who wrote the stuff.
I know.
So
Yes. Seen that version.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, one of the reasons I chose Romeo and Juliet to do in Mime as a cartoon was because it's such a bloody good story. It's a
Mm.
fantastic story.
And it's a common story in a
It's a
sense.
common story,
Yeah. West
and
Side Story. And,
West Side Story.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And people know it. They
Yes.
know that, as human
And can
beings, we
relate to
know
it. Many people can relate to it. They're going through it, right? Yes.
absolutely, yeah. So so but it's you can,
You
as I said at the
humorized it.
time, you can hit Shakespeare, you can hit it with
Yeah.
a stick, and
Yeah.
it'll survive. It's such a
Yes.
bloody good story,
Right.
and the writing is beautiful and it's fantastic. But please remember that it was written in a hurry, under pressure, and there's an audience, and he had to deliver the goods.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it may not be perfect. Who cares?
It
It's a
was
bloody
written
good
for
story.
the times, which unfortunately are still the times today, because we're very slow in evolving.
Yes, absolutely. And we don't learn.
No,
That's why there's wars happening all around us at
I
the moment.
know,
And
I know.
we both
This
thought,
is the aspect of humanity that I find incredibly frustrating. We have
oh,
everything at our fingertips to allow us to evolve, and the
yeah,
evolving is the evolving in our consciousness, raising up that frequency to a higher level. Let's just
mm,
simply let caring, kindness, compassion, consideration, respect, love. be the guide. Let it be the compass, right? But no, it's got to be you're right, I'm wrong. This is that, and
Yeah,
let's just annihilate each other. And that's so
yeah.
Neanderthal. Haven't we evolved from there? Please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I don't think we have, unfortunately. And now we're so sophisticated. We have the weaponry to make it
I
really
know.
disrupt.
And
And
kill without looking into the eyes, which is a
yeah,
cowardly way of
yeah,
doing it. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, that's what, yeah. One of my objections to video games is many of them are built around killing people, and in fact,
Desensitizing.
essentially that's and the American military, or probably all military,
Yeah.
use video games to desensitize
Yeah.
their soldiers to killing people, and you
So
go, well,
brainwashing people without them knowing. And the gaming industry is bigger than the filming industry, folks.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, so now we've evolved in many ways. We're very sophisticated, but really stupid at the same time as a species.
Absolutely.
We
And
haven't
it's so
learned.
frustrating because I know we're so capable of so much more. And I feel the universe is desperately waiting. I mean, they gave me a saying some 6 years ago. The universe is going to shake us up to wake us up, for us to step
Mm,
up and change it up and grow
yeah.
up. But the double entendre on grow up is grow up vibrationally, but grow up.
Well, it comes back and you sparked this thought in me a moment ago by what you're saying. We have to be the best possible person we
Yeah.
can be
Yes.
individually.
Yes.
Otherwise, the place is stuffed. And so the best way we can do that is to be compassionate and be caring and help each other out and be supportive. So getting right back to the very start of the conversation about building a business. If you can build a business on compassion and build
Yes.
on human relationships and trust, then I think you're winning.
I think that you're ahead of the game quite considerably, and I think you're on track. I
Mm,
think that's I don't care what you've got out there. How, if you've got the next thing, sliced cheese, I don't care what it is. If it
mm,
isn't something that serves people in a way that helps them evolve, helps them discover themselves, helps them become better humans, right? Then it's just another useless product out there, right?
yeah,
And if they can't buy you, why should they buy from you? Right?
indeed.
We're tired of being sold to.
Yes.
We want to know, is there something you have that we want to buy? Have you got something that we need? No, you're just like pishing all the time, shoving it
Yeah.
down our throats.
Yeah.
We're tired of that. We don't want that anymore. It's like those
You don't-
stupid flashes we used to have on the sites, right?
yeah.
Where's the relationship?
With a relationship, indeed, and the things that we are sold because people are selling it to us
Yes.
in whatever physical form they become landfill, the equivalent
Yeah,
of landfill.
exactly.
We buy stuff
Exactly.
we don't need, and it becomes landfill, whether it's that psychological landfill
Yes.
or landfill.
Yeah.
And because we didn't want to buy it in the first place, and we bought it because we were convinced we had to because we had to have it, and then you go, oh,
Or we
actually,
were
no, I don't.
pressurized into it, or we were
We're
made to
pressured
feel
into it.
less than, and you can only feel more if you buy it,
Oh,
right?
you've got to have the latest version of. Well,
Yes.
no, actually, some very profound thing that someone said recently was, and that's why I only use the amount of technology I need to use for people to tell their stories on video.
Hmm.
They said the what was it? The last of the old ways of doing things are always better than the first of the new way of doing things,
Hmm.
and that's so profound because we're convinced that we have to have the latest version of the technology. We have to have this, and we don't because we find when we spend money and buy it that it can do 1,000 things or 100 things, but you only use four of them.
Right,
So
exactly.
why do I need all the other? I don't need the other
Exactly.
things. I might maybe use one or two of them in the future, but it can do all these things. Yeah, but I don't
We've
care.
been conditioned
Yeah,
that we need the next shiny thing. And this is something I was talking about with dear old Joel Coleman from the Planters, where he was
hmm,
saying, and I said to him, in his 50-year career, what interrupted you, with technology or anything? He said, disco. Disco, it's because they weren't hiring musicians to come in and
yeah,
perform for people. They could hire a DJ for 200 a night to play all night. And there
yeah,
was virtually a decade they were, and where he had to go overseas, where they were
hmm,
still looking for performers. But what happened at the end of disco? We were hungry for performers. We were
yeah,
hungry for that connection. We were hungry for those songs that meant something to us. We were tired of the bobbity, bobbity, bobbity beep, right?
Yeah.
You can only do it
Mm.
for so long. Really, what is
Yeah.
it? We crave connection,
Mm.
right?
And we crave, getting right back, we crave authenticity. In fact, I really, as a musician and artist who, yeah, as a songwriter, I really object to DJs. They're probably really nice people,
I was
but
a
I
mobile
object to
DJ. Don't hold it against me.
no, but they don't create anything. They
Hmm.
use other people's stuff, and
Yeah,
yeah, they mix it up and
but
make that
as a
fun.
mobile disc, you're setting the stage for the party, right? So
Absolutely,
creating a good
that's
party.
right. And indeed, and some of them are very skilled entertainers as well. But what they use is other people's art, and
Yes.
it's a bit like, yeah. Well, copyright must be a bit a bit of an issue.
Well,
Well,
you're showcasing it. You're showcasing it, right?
okay. Well,
So,
that's
you
an
know,
interesting way of looking at it, actually, because yes, as long as the people who are listening to it know who it is that
right.
which songs they're playing or who wrote
They
them.
love the song so much they danced all night. They're now going to go and buy the record.
Yeah, and the thing is, yeah, when you're in, not that I've been in discos, but when you're in that space, you don't care. You just want to bop. You just want to
Yeah.
dance and have a good time. And so, yeah,
The mobile
it's a
disc kit, it was a little
bit.
different because we were going to people's houses and weddings and events.
Oh, yeah,
And so
yeah.
you were
Look, yeah,
setting the stage for how people were going to react. So there was a certain amount of artistry to it in like how you got the audience engaged. So
yep,
it wasn't in the discos, we were bringing the disco to them. And you would
mm,
have the favorite numbers. Of course,
yes.
Neil Diamond was big at the time, right? Tie the yellow ribbon. I'm going back to the 70s, folks, okay? You
Oh
know,
my.
I got so sick of that song.
70s. I always say the 70s, 70, the fashion was crap, but the music was fantastic.
Oh
The
God,
music of the 70s was
Bread
just
and the
with
Doors
the
and Blood, Sweat and Tears and Earth, Wind and
Smoke
Fire.
Palm,
Yeah.
like, yes, the Supertramp, all those
Yes.
wonderful, and oh, the music was just exquisitely stunning.
Yeah.
In fact, I was a musician in the 70s, and we created a lot of music of that type. You know,
Yeah.
it's now called prog rock. It wasn't called prog rock at the time. It was just called what we did. But I YouTube is fantastic for that, because you
Yes.
can
Yes. You can go back in time. Yeah.
go back in time,
Yeah.
and I watch Yes concerts, or in fact, I went to the Paul McCartney concert a
Oh,
couple of
wow.
weeks ago. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And there's something about, again, there's an authenticity. You know, we've all seen Paul McCartney play Hey Jude
Hmm.
and Let It Be 1,000 times on television, but actually seeing
Yeah.
him live on stage playing those songs
It's an intimacy that you
is
don't
in,
get. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
with 60,000 other people.
Yes.
Still the intimacy that's there,
Yeah.
because it's playing those songs live and he's singing them,
Yeah.
and at 81 doing a bloody good job of it too.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, oh, and yeah, pretty sure that it'll be the last opportunity ever to see
Yes.
that, to experience that. It was fantastic. And again, it's that he's someone who's very humanly engaging in between
Yes.
songs, during the songs, but in between his
Yeah.
chats, and it was a wonderful experience, and almost didn't go, just kind of, oh yeah, I suppose I'll go. I'm so glad I went.
Yeah.
And it was just a delightful thing. Again, it's the human relationship. Yeah, I don't have a one-to-one relationship with Paul McCartney, but by God, through his music I do.
Yes.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
it's a privilege.
But
It's a
the
privilege.
thing with about music or good art or good artistry or even a good program, it's something that can go through the decades of time,
Yeah,
and it just becomes a different form of meaning at the time according to where you're at. That song meant this at
absolutely.
that time, that program meant
Yeah.
this at this time. Now it means this. And
Mm.
it doesn't lose its story. The story expands on itself.
It takes you straight back. Yeah, listening to the songs of the 70s, 60s, whatever, it takes you straight back there to those, as you write, those experiences that you
Yeah.
were having at the time. And because it's not just the song,
No.
it evokes a whole. It's like looking at a photograph
Yes.
of the landscape. Yeah, you can
Who
only ever
you
take a
used to be,
photograph of
how
this
you
part of
felt
the
at that
how
time.
you feel,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what's either side of the frame.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
you remember all of that. So it's like a
But it's
catalyst.
also great introducing, because I've got a 7-month-old and a 2.5-year-old grandson, and I'm introducing them to things like bread and and we are the champions and all of that. And when I played bread, he said, "I don't know that song," and I said, "No, I want you to listen to this song.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
cool
yeah.
song." And then Google kept playing all the 70 music, and then I see his little shoulders going going up and down as he's boogieing to it. And I thought, yeah. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of
Yes.
anything
Yes.
that's good. You know, the program you've got, it doesn't matter if it was yesterday, today, or tomorrow. The basis of the program, right, is the foundation, is the structure. You can take that structure and that foundation and elaborate on it. But if you don't have that structure and the principle behind it, then you're going to lose the story.
Absolutely, and that reminds us that it's about that. It's about the story. It's about the person. It's not about the vehicle through which that story is told.
Right.
It's not the medium. It's not the vehicle. It's the fundamental gut.
And how did it make you feel? Did it reach you?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Did it reach you? Does it touch you? Does it reach you? Does it touch you? How does it make you feel?
Does it inspire you and invite you to go and do something?
Does it give you confidence? Does it make you feel better? And that's what it's about, making you feel better. However that's manifested, whether it's a presentation or a performance or baking bread, it doesn't matter. It does it make you feel better about doing that thing? And that's really what it's about.
A good chocolate croissant is going to make you feel better. Now, having said all of this, my darling, if somebody's interested in putting this together, how do they reach you? What are you offering?
Do they reach me? Do they touch me? They can. Well, I'm about to launch my new revitalized website within the next few days. It's not quite there yet, but Dr. Chris at artsmediaconsultants.com is a way of reaching me. There's the email Dr. Chris at artsmediaconsultants.com, or there's a QR code that's on the screen, which if presumably that they can
for those that are watching, not those that are listening.
Oh, listening. Okay. www.artsmediaconsultants.com is the website, will be the website. It is now, but it's a rubbishy one. It's being rebuilt. Or LinkedIn, Dr. Christiaan Willems. That's Christian with 2 A's. It's Dutch. Dr. Christiaan Willems on LinkedIn. You can reach me through that. And I like LinkedIn because it's so far it's a reasonable, it's not in your face kind of thing, so you can
but
choose.
It's also I find very supportive. I find again very interactive, very supportive, and I've met some great people there. Again, back to whatever you've got, interaction. Participation, right? And that's the important. You've created a great video, it's going to reach people, it's going to touch people, but if you don't get it out there, then nobody's going to see it. So there's that next stage, right?
Speaking of which, and it just reminded me, on LinkedIn, I haven't posted any for a little while, but I used to do a weekly 1-minute micro masterclass video on LinkedIn, put it out on LinkedIn. So if you probably, I don't know whether Google works, but on LinkedIn, 1-minute micro masterclasses. There should be like 30 or 40 of them, or whatever. Or you will be able to go to my website and see some of them. But go to LinkedIn, Dr. Christiaan Willems, and let's have a chat.
Yes.
I'd be delighted to have a chat.
Yeah, reach out, start the conversation. You never know where it's going to go, right?
Indeed. And Sarah, thank you so much. I'm so late for my appointment now, but I don't care because
I've enjoyed this tremendously myself as well, and it's been an absolute delight. And I just I love it when things that, yes, we cover all the topics of what we need to cover, but I just love it when we let the conversation go, because there's always so many lovely nuggets out there, and that's what it's about, right? What nuggets did you get out of it? Don't forget to let us know.
Indeed. Sarah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, your time and your interest in what I'm doing in my work, and keep the conversations going.
I will do. I was saying, till I'm blind, deaf, and dumb, I'm going to still be doing this. The oldest person I've interviewed was 92 with her own TV show. If she can do it, I can do it.
Indeed. All right, then. Thank you so much. So shall I sign off, or do you do that?
No, I'm going to close up here. So don't forget, folks, it's all about your authenticity. It's all about how are you reaching, how are you making people feel, but put it out there, and put it out there confidently. Preparation, but also with the authenticity of why you're doing it and the passion behind it, because then that's when people are going to feel it. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there, and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.